Her sisters sold her to the rival pack, unaware she was the Alpha King's fated mate. The forest was quiet under the blood-red moon, as if even the wind feared to move too loudly. Shadows stretched long across the ground, twisting and swaying with every flicker of the moonlight. Among the towering trees, a girl ran, her bare feet slipping over roots and stones. Her chest heaved with exhaustion, but her mind raced faster than her legs. Elijah's heart pounded not from fear alone, but from betrayal. She could hardly believe that her own sisters had done this. The sisters she had grown up with, laughed with, shared secrets with, they had sold her to the rival pack. The thought made her stomach turn. She had never imagined jealousy could taste so bitter. Her breaths came ragged, and the chains around her wrists jingled with every movement. They were iron, dark as the night, biting into her skin. She had tried to break free, but the ropes were enchanted, made by the rival pack to hold even the strongest of fighters. She had no choice but to keep moving, keep hiding, and hope that some miracle, some whisper of fate would reach her. Elijah stopped for a moment, pressing her back against the trunk of an ancient oak. Her chest rose and fell, and she clenched her fists so tightly that her nails bit into her palms. The forest around her was silent except for the distant howl of wolves, wolves of her own pack. She realized too late. Her sisters had thought this would erase her, sell her like an object and hide her forever. But they didn't understand. Elijah was no ordinary girl. Something in her ran deeper than blood, something the world had not yet seen. The footsteps came next, heavy, deliberate, and certain. Elijah's heart jumped, and she pressed herself lower into the shadows. Her chains rattled as she tried to move silently, but it was useless. Within seconds, figures emerged from the misty darkness. The rival pack had found her. "Hold her," a deep voice commanded. The words were sharp, like a knife cutting through the quiet. Strong hands grabbed her from both sides, pulling her into the clearing. Elijah struggled, but she was weaker than her captors. She kicked and twisted, but her wrists were bound and her ankles were trapped in iron shackles. Her eyes scanned the men around her. They were tall, muscular, and cruel. Each one had a scar, a mark, or a hardened look that spoke of countless battles. She swallowed the fear rising in her throat, trying not to let them see the storm inside her. One of them stepped closer. His eyes were dark, almost black, but they flickered with something unusual, a hint of curiosity. "This one is stronger than she looks," he muttered. Elijah glared at him, her chest heaving. "I will not be your prisoner," she said, her voice steady despite the fear curling like ice in her stomach. The man smirked, leaning closer. "We'll see about that," he said, but there was something in his tone that made Elijah's heart skip, a faint recognition, as if he sensed she was not like the others. They dragged her through the forest, the moonlight fading behind thick clouds. The journey was long and grueling. Elijah's feet were cut and bruised, her hands raw from the chains, but she did not cry. She could not. Crying meant giving them power, and she had sworn she would never give them that. As dawn broke, the trees thinned, and the rival pack's stronghold rose like a dark crown on the horizon. It was a fortress of stone and iron, surrounded by high walls and sharp spikes. From where she stood, Elijah could see guards moving like shadows along the ramparts, their eyes scanning the forest with unyielding vigilance. Her stomach twisted. This was no ordinary captivity. This was a place where hope came to die. Yet even as fear pressed against her ribs, a small spark glimmered in her heart. She had survived this far. Perhaps she could survive more. Perhaps there was someone who would come for her, someone who was meant to. The gates opened with a deep, thunderous groan, and the rival pack soldiers pushed her inside. The walls echoed with the sound of her chains and her soft, defiant footsteps. She was taken to a large hall, dimly lit by torches that flickered against the stone. Shadows danced across the walls, hiding the faces of those who had come to claim her. A figure stood at the far end of the hall, watching silently. He was tall, his presence commanding. His hair was dark, his eyes an intense silver that seemed to pierce through the shadows and into her very soul. Elijah's breath caught. Something about him was different. He did not look at her with anger or cruelty. He did not look at her as a prisoner. Her mind spun. Who was he? Why did she feel her heart stir despite the fear gripping her body? The rival leader stepped forward, bowing slightly. "Your Alpha King has sent word," he said. "This one, she may be the one he seeks." "She may be." His voice faltered slightly, as if naming her aloud was dangerous. The silver-eyed man took a step forward. His gaze locked onto hers, and Elijah felt something deep inside her respond, a pull she did not understand. She tried to step back, but the chains held her fast. He did not move closer, yet his presence filled the room entirely, pushing at her heart and mind. "Elijah," he said softly, almost a whisper. Her name on his lips was like a song, both terrifying and beautiful. "You were meant for something far greater than this." Elijah's mind reeled. Who are you?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her effort to stay calm. "I am Kaelin," he replied, and the name seemed to hum with power. "The Alpha King of your bloodline." "And you are mine." Her chest tightened. The words were impossible. The stories she had heard, the prophecies whispered among her pack, they had always seemed like tales for children. But now they felt real. "Yours?" she asked, disbelief and fear warring in her heart. "I don't even know you." Kaelin's silver eyes softened slightly, though his voice remained firm. "You do not need to know me yet, but you will feel it. The bond that ties us is older than time, older than fear, older than the cruelty that brought you here." Elijah wanted to scream, to argue, to run, but the truth pressed against her chest like a stone. She had felt something before, a whisper in the forest, a shadow guiding her steps, a pull toward a destiny she could not yet name. And now, in the presence of this stranger, this Alpha King, she understood why. The rival leader scoffed, breaking the moment. "This is absurd. She is mine by right, by the deal your sisters made." Kaelin's eyes turned icy, like silver frost on a winter night. "No one can claim what fate has bound. You have no right to this girl," he said, his voice cutting through the hall like a blade. The rival leader hesitated, sensing the power in the room, the force of destiny pressing against his arrogance. Elijah's heart pounded as she realized that she was at the center of something far larger than herself. She was not just a pawn in her sister's jealousy. She was not just a captive. She was the center of a story that was only beginning to unfold. And yet the danger was far from over. The rival pack would not give her up easily. They would fight, scheme, and try to claim what they thought was theirs. But Elijah felt a spark of hope, fragile yet fierce. She would not be broken. She would not be a victim. She would survive. Kaelin stepped closer, his presence a shield and a promise all at once. "Do not be afraid, Elijah. I will find a way to free you, but you must trust yourself and me." Elijah looked into his eyes, and for the first time since her betrayal, she felt something she had thought lost forever: hope. But the chains around her wrists reminded her that freedom was not yet within reach. She had to survive. She had to endure. And she had to prepare for the storm that was coming. As the torches flickered and shadows danced across the hall, Elijah realized that her life had changed forever. She was no longer just a girl betrayed by her sisters. She was a pawn in a game of destiny, a spark in a world that had long been darkened by power and cruelty. And she had a choice: to fade quietly into the shadows or to rise, stronger than anyone had ever imagined. The rival pack murmured and whispered behind her, plotting, scheming, waiting for a moment to strike. But Elijah's eyes met Kaelin's again, and she felt the bond deepening, invisible but undeniable. Somewhere in the shadows of her mind, a whisper of power stirred. Something ancient, something fierce, something that would not be tamed. The forest outside was still under the blood-red moon, and far away, wolves howled in warning. Elijah's journey had only begun. And then from the darkness of the hall, a soft voice echoed, almost a whisper carried on the wind. "Elijah, my mate." The word sent a shiver down her spine. Somewhere deep inside, she knew this was true. But the path ahead was dangerous, and she had no idea what it would demand of her. Chains could bind her body, but they could not touch her spirit. And in that moment, Elijah vowed, she would survive, she would endure, and she would not let fate be denied. The first chapter of her destiny had begun. The dawn rose pale and cold over the rival pack's fortress, casting a silver light on the stone walls. Elijah sat in the corner of her small cell, the iron chains around her wrists pressing painfully against her skin. Her body ached from exhaustion, but her mind was sharper than ever. She had survived the night, and now she had to find a way forward. The whispers of the prophecy echoed in her mind. The Omega who survives betrayal will awaken the Alpha King's true heart. She had never truly believed in fate, not until Kaelin's silver eyes had pierced her soul the night before. The memory of that gaze stayed with her, a mix of warmth, strength, and unspoken promise. But she was not free. The rival pack moved around her like predators, their eyes watching every twitch of her body, their whispers carrying threats she could barely understand. She clenched her fists, refusing to show fear. Every day, every moment, she had to be strong. Outside, the forest stirred with the movements of Kaelin's scouts. He had sent them quietly, slipping through shadows and mist to keep watch over her. Elijah did not know this, but the knowledge gave her a strange comfort, a feeling that she was not completely alone in the world. The morning passed slowly, each hour stretching like an endless chain. Elijah could hear the rival pack talking among themselves. Their leader, a tall man with a cruel scar across his cheek, moved through the hallways giving orders. She cannot escape. No one has ever broken our chains, he said, his voice hard and cold. We will show her the cost of betrayal. Elijah's heart ached at the word betrayal. Her sisters' faces flashed in her mind, smiling, laughing, turning her into a pawn for their envy. She wanted to cry, to scream, but she swallowed her tears. Crying would not help her. Survival would. Patience would. The hours passed. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the fortress walls. Elijah tried to listen, to understand the sounds around her, but the hallways were thick with guards. Escape seemed impossible. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a spark of determination grew. She was not just a girl chained in a fortress. She was someone more, someone strong, someone with a destiny. Suddenly, a shadow flickered in the corner of the room. Elijah froze, her chains rattling slightly. She strained her eyes, but the figure had vanished. She could feel it, though, a presence that made her heart race. Something familiar, something powerful, something that had followed her since the forest. Outside the fortress, Kaelin stood on a cliff overlooking the land. The wind tugged at his dark hair, carrying the scent of pine, moss, and distant smoke. His silver eyes scanned the horizon, searching for her. The Alpha King's heart was heavy with worry, but stronger still was the bond he felt with Elijah. Even though they had only met briefly, he knew she was his fated mate. The threads of destiny had woven them together long before either of them understood it. Kaelin's hands clenched into fists. "I will not lose you to them," he whispered to the wind. "Not to betrayal, not to fate twisted by envy. I will bring you back." Inside the fortress, Elijah heard footsteps approaching. The door to her cell creaked open, and the rival pack leader stepped inside, followed by 2 guards. His eyes gleamed with authority, and Elijah could see the pride in his expression. "You have spirit," he said, his voice calm but dangerous. "Most girls would have broken by now, but you are special." Elijah lifted her chin, trying to appear fearless. "I will not be broken," she said quietly. He smirked. "We shall see." He motioned for the guards to leave. The cell door closed, leaving him alone with her. "Do you know why your sisters sold you?" he asked. "Jealousy, fear. They thought you would take everything from them, and they wanted to be safe." Elijah's hands trembled, but she forced herself to remain still. "They were wrong," she said. "You will not control me, you will not win." The rival leader's smirk faltered. Control is not the right word, he said softly. You are more remarkable than we imagined. That is why the Alpha King wants you. That is why you are dangerous. Elijah's heart skipped a beat. The words made no sense to her, yet they carried a strange weight, as if a truth lay hidden in them. The Alpha King, she whispered, barely able to say the words aloud. Kaelin, the rival leader's eyes narrowed. You have no idea what that name means, but soon you will. That evening, Elijah was brought to the courtyard. The rival pack trained there, their movements swift and precise. They demonstrated their power, their strength, and their discipline, as if to intimidate her. Elijah watched silently, her body tense, her mind calculating. Every guard, every soldier, every movement, they all left clues, weaknesses she could remember, patterns she could exploit. Then a strange wind swept through the courtyard. Elijah's hair lifted slightly, and she felt a familiar warmth in her chest. Her heart leaped. Someone was near. Someone watching. In the shadows of the trees, Kaelin observed her. His silver eyes glimmered like steel in the moonlight. He had slipped past the guards, moved silently, and now he watched her unseen. His heart ached to reach her, to remove the chains, to protect her from the cruelty of the rival pack. Elijah sensed a presence, faint but undeniable. Her breath caught, and she glanced toward the forest line. She could not see him, yet she felt him. Her heart recognized what her mind could not yet understand. She was not alone. Kaelin's hand rested on the hilt of his sword. I will find a way, he whispered to himself. I will not fail you. Night fell, and the rival pack brought Elijah back to her cell. Exhaustion weighed her down, but sleep did not come. Her mind replayed the day. The strength of the rival pack, the cruelty of their training, the whispers of destiny she did not yet understand. And above all, the memory of Kaelin, watching silently, waiting for the moment he could act. Suddenly, the door to her cell opened again. Elijah flinched, expecting the rival leader, but no one came in. A faint gust of wind brushed against her cheek, carrying the scent of pine and something warmer, something she recognized without knowing why. She closed her eyes, and in that instant she felt a whisper in her mind, a single, clear thought: trust the bond. He is coming. Elijah's chest tightened. The words were not spoken aloud, yet she understood them. The bond was real, ancient, and unbreakable. She felt a strength within her she had never known, a courage rising with every heartbeat. She would not surrender, she would not fade, she would wait, she would endure. The following days passed in a blur of fear and endurance. The rival pack continued their attempts to break her spirit, but each failure only strengthened Elijah. She discovered that the chains did not bind her mind or her courage. Each night she whispered her own words to herself, reminders of strength, hope, and the promise of freedom. Kaelin's presence lingered always, unseen but palpable. In every shadow, in every rustle of leaves, in every whisper of the wind, Elijah felt him. She began to sense the bond they shared, not just in her heart but in her very being. It pulsed with life, with power, with destiny. Then, one night, as the blood moon rose again, the rival pack gathered in the hall for a council. Elijah was brought forward, chained but unbroken, her eyes sharp and alert. The leader spoke of her as if she were an object, a prize to be won. But in that moment, something inside Elijah awakened. Her chains rattled, not with her movement, but with a force she could not explain. The metal groaned as if resisting the very magic that bound it. The rival pack stepped back, murmuring in fear. The air in the hall grew heavy, charged with energy. Elijah's eyes flared with a silver light that mirrored Kaelin's. She did not understand it fully, but she felt power, raw, untamed, and alive, flowing through her. Her heart beat with a force she had never known, and in that heartbeat she heard Kaelin's voice clearly. "Hold on, Elijah, I am coming." The rival leader staggered back, fear flashing in his eyes. What is this?" he demanded. Elijah took a deep breath. The chains were still there, the guards still strong, but something fundamental had shifted. She was no longer just a victim. She was a force, A spark of destiny had ignited within her, and nothing, not fear, not betrayal, not cruel enemies, could extinguish it. Outside the fortress, Kalen moved through the forest, swift and silent. He had felt the surge of power, the awakening of the bond, and it had driven him forward with renewed urgency. The night air was alive with possibility. Soon he would reach her. Soon he would free her. Soon the bond of destiny would no longer be invisible. The blood moon hung high over the fortress, a silent witness to the power stirring within Elijah. The rival pack did not understand. They could not understand, but they would learn, and when they did, it would be too late. And in the shadows of the forest, Kalen's silver eyes gleamed with determination. He would not fail her. The night was thick with mist, and the air smelled of wet earth and pine. Kalen moved like a shadow through the forest, silent and sure. Every step brought him closer to the rival pack's fortress, but the closer he came, the more dangerous it became. He had observed them for days, watched their patrols and learned their weaknesses. Now he was ready. Every heartbeat reminded him of Elijah. Her silver eyes, so full of defiance and fire, haunted his thoughts. He had never expected to feel such a bond so quickly, but fate was undeniable. She was his mate, bound to him by a connection older than either of them could understand. And she was in danger. That was all that mattered. Inside the fortress, Elijah's nights were restless. Her body was weary from the day's torment, but her mind was awake, alert, and calculating. The silver light that had emerged in her eyes during the blood moon had not faded. In fact, it pulsed faintly whenever she felt fear or hope. She did not understand it yet, but she sensed that it was connected to Kalen. The thought of him gave her strength, even when she was chained, even when she felt trapped. The rival pack had grown suspicious of her. They whispered among themselves, eyes darting to her every move. "She is more than we imagined," one guard said. "Something in her, it is unnatural." "She has the Alpha King's bloodline in her," another whispered, shivering. "That is why she cannot be broken." Elijah's chest tightened. She had never known what that meant, but she understood the danger she faced. Every day, the rival pack tried to intimidate her, to crush her spirit, but the bond with Kalen had already begun to shape her courage. She was no longer just a prisoner, she was a spark that could not be extinguished. As midnight approached, the fortress became quiet. The guards relaxed slightly, lulled by the silence. This was Kalen's moment. He crept closer to the walls, silent as the wind. His silver eyes glimmered like moonlight on steel. He reached the first guard post and watched carefully, timing his move. Then, with a swift motion, he leaped, landing silently behind the unsuspecting guard. A soft, controlled strike, and the guard was unconscious before he could make a sound. Kalen pressed on, moving like a shadow through the fortress. Every step was careful, every movement precise. He could feel Elijah's presence, her energy reaching out to him, guiding him, pulling him closer. Finally, he reached the courtyard where Elijah had been forced to train during the day. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and iron. Elijah's chains clinked softly as she shifted on the cold stone floor. She sensed him immediately, a pull stronger than fear, stronger than chains. Her heart leaped. Kalen stepped into view, his silver eyes locking on hers. "Elijah," he whispered, and the word carried the weight of promise and protection. She wanted to cry, to run into his arms, but she knew the danger was far from over. "Kalen," she breathed. "You came." He stepped closer, assessing the path ahead. "I will always come for you," he said, "but you must be ready. This will not be easy." Elijah nodded, feeling a courage she had never known. The chains that bound her wrists seemed smaller now, almost insignificant against the strength she felt rising inside her. Her eyes glimmered faintly in the darkness, and Kalen recognized it immediately. Her power was awakening. The rival pack had discovered her absence in moments, their alarms echoing through the fortress. Shouts and footsteps rang out, and the air grew tense. Kalen grabbed Elijah's hand, the touch grounding them both. "Stay close to me," he said. Trust me." Together, they moved swiftly through the shadowed hallways. The sound of pursuit grew louder, but Elijah felt no fear. With Kaelin beside her, she could feel the bond, the ancient connection that tied them together. Every step, every breath strengthened her resolve. As they approached the fortress gates, Kaelin paused, assessing the guards. There were too many to fight head-on, and the chains around Elijah's wrist still slowed her. Then she felt it, a pulse of energy rising from within her, a surge of strength she did not yet fully understand. "Elijah," Kaelin said urgently. "Now." She took a deep breath and the power within her flared. The chains rattled violently, the iron glowing faintly with silver light. The guards froze, eyes wide in shock. With a sudden, controlled force, the chains shattered, clanging to the ground. Elijah stared at her hands, amazed. I did it," she whispered. Kaelin's eyes gleamed with pride and awe. "Yes," he said softly. "Your strength, it is extraordinary, but we must move." They ran through the gates, shadows stretching and twisting as they disappeared into the night. The rival pack shouted, but they were too late. Kaelin and Elijah moved like one, their bond guiding every step, every decision. As they reached the forest beyond the walls, Elijah's heart finally allowed herself a small measure of relief. She was free, for now. But the danger was far from over. The rival pack would not give up easily, and the awakening of her power would only make them more determined. They reached a clearing where Kaelin had prepared a temporary refuge. A small grove, hidden from the eyes of the world, provided safety for the moment. Elijah collapsed onto the soft grass, exhausted but alive. Kaelin knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You did well," he said. "Your courage, your power, it is more than I imagined, but we must be careful, they will come for you again." Elijah looked into his eyes, silver light dancing faintly in her own. "I am not afraid," she said. "Not with you." Kaelin's expression softened. "I will protect you," he said firmly. "No matter the cost." They sat in silence, the forest around them alive with the sounds of night. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the scent of pine and earth. Somewhere in the distance, wolves howled, a reminder of the pack she had come from and the destiny that awaited her. Elijah felt a stirring deep inside, a connection not just to Kaelin, but to something larger, something ancient. Her power had awakened, yes, but it was tied to a destiny she was only beginning to understand. She could feel it calling to her, guiding her, preparing her for the challenges ahead. Kaelin watched her carefully, sensing the same awakening. He had felt it before, but now it was stronger, more defined. The bond between them pulsed like a heartbeat, visible only to those who truly understood it. He knew that this was only the beginning. The night passed slowly, and when dawn began to break, painting the sky with pale pinks and golds, Kaelin rose. "We must move," he said. "The rival pack will recover quickly. We need to find a safe place and understand the full extent of your power." Elijah stood beside him, her hands trembling slightly but her heart steady. "I am ready," she said. "Show me." They traveled through the forest, avoiding patrols and using hidden paths known only to Kaelin. Every step brought them closer, not just physically, but emotionally. The bond between them deepened, unspoken yet undeniable. They did not need words to understand each other. The connection was written in their hearts, in their very souls. As night fell again, they reached an ancient grove, a place of power where the trees formed a natural circle, and the moonlight fell like silver rain. Kaelin helped Elijah center herself, guiding her through the awakening of her abilities. "You have strength beyond measure," he said softly, "but it is not just physical. Your power comes from your heart, your courage, and the bond between us. You must trust it, trust yourself." Elijah closed her eyes, focusing on the energy flowing through her. She felt warmth, strength, and a strange sense of calm. Her hands glowed faintly, silver light spreading like threads of moonlight over her skin. She opened her eyes and Kaelin smiled, proud and amazed. "You are extraordinary," he said. "And soon we will face the rival pack again. But this time, you will not be afraid. We will face them together." Elijah nodded, feeling the truth of his words in every fiber of her being. She was no longer just a prisoner. She was a force, a spark of destiny, a bond that could not be broken. The night deepened, the moon high above, and the forest around them whispered secrets of power, destiny, and love yet to come. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, Elijah felt hope. And somewhere in the shadows, the rival pack stirred, unaware of the awakening power of the Omega they had sought to control, unaware of the Alpha King moving silently to claim his fated mate. The story was only beginning. The first rays of dawn broke through the mist, painting the forest in pale gold. Elijah stood beside Kaelin at the edge of the ancient grove, her silver eyes reflecting the light. The bond between them had grown stronger in the night since her rescue. She felt it pulsing like a heartbeat in her chest, an invisible thread connecting her to him, to her destiny, and to the strength that had always been inside her. Kaelin's gaze swept over the forest, alert for any sign of the rival pack. "Today we end this," he said, his voice steady but low. "They will not take you again. They will not touch you, not your spirit, not your heart." Elijah nodded, her hands glowing faintly with silver light. She had trained with him, learned to focus her power, and understood that it was not just strength. It was courage, defiance, and the bond between them that made it unstoppable. She would not be afraid, and she would not run. The forest was still, almost unnaturally so. Every leaf, every twig seemed to hold its breath. Then in the distance the shadows began to move. Figures emerged, their shapes familiar. The rival pack had tracked them. Elijah's chest tightened, but she did not falter. Kaelin stepped forward, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "Together," he said, "we face them together." The rival pack leader, the man with the cruel scar across his cheek, stepped into the clearing. His eyes widened slightly when he saw Elijah standing beside Kaelin, her presence radiating power and confidence. "You cannot escape us," he shouted. "She belongs to us." Elijah met his gaze, unflinching. "I belong to no one but myself," she said, "and to those who love me." "You will not break me again." The rival pack hesitated. They could sense the change in her, the awakening of her power, the bond with Kaelin, the courage that radiated from her every movement. For the first time, they saw her not as a victim, but as a force they could not control. Kaelin stepped beside her, his silver eyes glowing faintly. "Leave now," he commanded, "and live or face what comes next." The rival leader laughed, though it was uneasy. "You think your Alpha King can protect you," he spat. "This is your end, girl." But Elijah did not tremble. She took a deep breath, feeling the energy rising within her. The silver light in her eyes flared brighter, spilling across her hands and wrapping around her like a cloak of moonlight. The rival pack staggered back, fear and awe in equal measure. "Now," Kaelin said. Elijah focused, and the air around them seemed to hum with energy. The trees swayed as if in response, the wind whispering through the branches like voices of old spirits. The rival pack felt the force pressing against them, the unbreakable bond of destiny that had been awakened. With a swift motion, Elijah moved forward, her power guiding her steps. She did not strike with anger, nor with malice. She moved with purpose, with truth, with the courage that had carried her through every night in the fortress. The rival pack stumbled back, overwhelmed by the strength radiating from her. Kaelin followed, his presence a shield and a blade. Together they moved as one, a perfect balance of power, trust, and unity. The rival pack tried to fight, but they were unprepared for the force of destiny itself. Elijah raised her hands, and the silver light spread outward, creating a barrier of energy that forced the rival pack back. Their leader shouted, trying to command them forward, but his voice faltered. They had underestimated her. They had underestimated the bond between a fated mate and the Alpha King. The leader stepped forward, furious, but Kaelin's silver eyes locked onto his, and the world seemed to still. "You have lost," Kaelin said, his voice calm but absolute. You cannot claim what fate has bound. Leave or face ruin." The rival leader's eyes flickered with fear and hesitation. He realized, too late, that he was no match for Elijah's courage and power combined with Kaelin's strength. With a snarl, he signaled retreat and the pack dispersed, disappearing into the forest like shadows swallowed by the night. Elijah sank to her knees, exhausted but victorious. Kaelin knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You were extraordinary," he said. "Stronger than I even imagined." She looked up at him, silver light dimming slightly in her eyes. "I could not have done it without you," she said softly. "You gave me courage, Kaelin. You showed me I am not just a pawn in someone else's game." He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch tender. "No one can ever take your spirit," he said. "Not your sisters, not the rival pack, not anyone. You are yours, Elijah, and you are mine by bond, by destiny, and by choice." Elijah felt warmth flood her chest. The bond between them pulsed, stronger than ever, a promise unspoken but undeniable. She had feared for so long, had doubted herself, had believed she was alone. But now, standing beside Kaelin, she understood that she was never truly alone. She had strength, courage, and love. Kaelin helped her to her feet, and together they looked toward the horizon. The forest stretched endlessly before them, mist curling around the trees like silver smoke. Somewhere far away, the first wolves of the morning howled, a chorus celebrating survival, courage, and the dawn of a new era. Elijah felt the full weight of her journey, the betrayal of her sisters, the cruelty of the rival pack, the nights of fear and uncertainty. And she also felt the triumph, the awakening of her power, the bond with Kaelin, and the knowledge that she had faced her destiny and claimed it. "Your sisters," Kaelin began, his expression hardening slightly. "They will answer for what they did." Elijah shook her head, a faint smile touching her lips. "They are lost to their jealousy," she said. "I cannot waste my strength on them. I have my own path to follow now, and it leads with you." Kaelin's expression softened, and he took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "Then we walk it together," he said. "Whatever comes, we face it as one." The sun rose higher, painting the sky with gold and crimson. Elijah closed her eyes, breathing deeply. For the first time in weeks, she felt peace, not because the danger was gone, but because she had faced it and had not been broken. She had survived, she had risen, and she had embraced her destiny. Kaelin placed his arm around her shoulders, guiding her gently. "There will be more challenges ahead," he said. "The world is not yet free of darkness, but together we will face it, and together we will prevail." Elijah nodded, the light of the morning warming her face. "I am ready," she said. "Ready for anything as long as we are together." The bond pulsed between them, silent but strong, a promise of loyalty, courage, and love. The forest around them seemed to recognize it, the trees standing tall as if bowing to the union of fate. The silver light in her eyes shimmered faintly, a reminder of the power within her, a gift awakened by courage and trust. As they walked toward the distant mountains, leaving the forest and the rival pack behind, Elijah felt the story of her life shift. She was no longer the girl betrayed by her sisters, no longer the prisoner of the rival pack. She was a force, a spark of destiny, and the mate of an alpha king. And though the world held challenges still, Elijah knew one truth above all: she would never face them alone. Kaelin was by her side, their bond unbreakable, their destiny intertwined. And together they would face whatever came next, stronger, braver, and united by a bond older than time. The forest fell silent behind them, the morning sun casting long shadows across the land. Elijah looked up at Kaelin, her heart full of hope, courage, and something deeper, love that was steady, fierce, and eternal. The journey was far from over, but for the first time she understood the power of destiny. And she knew with unwavering certainty that they were ready for whatever lay ahead. The sun rose higher, spilling gold across the earth. Elijah and Kaelin walked forward together, hand in hand, the forest and past dangers behind them. The world awaited them and they were ready. Their story had not ended, it had only begun.